so much, Dan. Great to have everyone close in the middle. And thank you, Ale, and the organizers for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here. SECO is in charge of the Economic Development Corporation of Switzerland. And one of our main focus is actually, as the previous speakers also said, no poverty, so SDG 1. But we do this through working on many of the SDGs. One of the main one is SDG 8 on creating decent jobs. And we do this through different ways. One important way is through improving regulatory frameworks for companies, for startups, to actually be established and to grow. Because we believe in the innovation and in the entrepreneurial strength to create not only jobs, but also to find solutions for pressing problems. So when I say regulatory reforms, this covers macroeconomic stability, to work on making public financial management more transparent, on creating better tax policies so that you actually, as a government, can collect taxes, but you make it also easier for companies to pay taxes. Very important, without taxes, you cannot provide public services, something that I was mentioned also before of one of the speakers. But then we also work on investment and trade regulations. As a company, you don't want to deal your time mainly with bureaucracy and complicated regulations on walking around and getting all your papers. You want to do this fast, transparent, as cheap as possible online. And you need to have regulation, of course, but it should be, again, transparent, and it should be also done in a smart way. Trade policies, when you import, export, you know, there can be a lot of hassle, corruption, and that relates also, for example, with regard to vaccines or medical equipment. So it's really important also there to streamline regulation and to make this easier for the private sector. But then you have also infrastructure needs. You can't produce goods or services without energy. And you need to do this increasingly green and transparent and clean. And you also need skilled people. So we work on all these topics, and we have really in the last years increasingly mainstreamed the climate dimension into all of this regulatory work, because regulation is really key also in promoting green investments. So that's one part. In an ideal world, that would be enough. But we're not in an ideal world, and the challenges are pressing. So we need to accelerate investments, and we need to create a demonstration effect for investors that actually some of these investments are possible and can be even profitable, and even in very difficult countries, in some of them where we are active. So we have created over the last 20 plus years different investment instruments. One is the SECO Startup Fund, and I understand that tomorrow the co-manager will be here to explain in more detail how that works. That provides loans to companies, startups domiciled in Switzerland who want to expand into a developing country and create job and impact, as Andreas was also explaining before. Then we have our development finance institution, SIFEM, the Swiss Investment Fund for Emerging Markets. SIFEM invests in funds, local funds around the world. They lend on to SMEs. So these are companies that are already a bit more mature, that want to expand, and those funds invest into these companies. There are certain sector-specific funds. They may invest in health solution or tertiary sector education, for example, and of course also again into green solutions or bottom of the pyramid services. But so CIFM has been doing this for a long time. In fact, they were one of the first impact investors in Switzerland, because the first investments go back to the 90s. And CIFM has by now a portfolio of about 900 million Swiss francs, and it's owned by the Swiss Confederation. Then we have Pitch, which is the private infrastructure development group. It has been also created quite some time ago with the founding members belong the UK, the Netherlands, and other donors, and they help to invest in infrastructure needs around the globe, also in very poor, difficult markets, through a range of instruments from feasibility studies, investing in equity and loans, providing guarantees. And once they see that investment is up and running, they may sell it. And if they make profit, they can again reinvest the funds into a pipeline of new investments. So this revolving fund makes sure that public funds are reused and can scale the work ahead of us. What I forgot to say is that part of the regulatory work is also work on standards. We talked about, or we heard about, scaling solutions. We can't scale if we don't have global standards. So one way to create global standards is, for example, through multilateral development banks. So the World Bank IFC has quite some years ago back created the Equator Principles. They are being applied in project finance. They have been continuously developed and they address environmental, social and governance issues. So Switzerland, being a shareholder in this institution, was at the forefront of pushing IFC to be a pioneer on these aspects. But as SECO, for example, we have also supported the CBI, Global Bond Initiative, standards for green bonds, so that we make sure that we don't have a greenwashing, that we have a clear and science-based methodology on what is green in which sector, be it agriculture, transportation, water, etc. So very important work as well. Another example is the Green Building Edge methodology developed by the IFC. It addresses the construction sector. So in Switzerland, it would be the Minergie standard for those who know it, but it's adapted to developing countries, and it has a huge impact on developing countries, because especially more advanced economies are building a lot of buildings, and once you manage to create codes that require to be below with your emissions, and you provide a platform to actually, it works through a software and through advice, you create to diminish your water usage, your energy usage, you have a huge impact. And it was linked to the financial sector, so that actually companies or buildings applying this green building certificate, that they got better terms for financing their building. So it becomes a virtual circle. Finally, looking at the time, I would like to conclude with one new initiative we have been developing over the last 2 years about on impact investing. You may be aware that Switzerland is a hub for impact investing. 1/3 of the assets globally managed worldwide are managed out of Switzerland. So Switzerland is a world leader in this area. And while while in general, impact investing tripled in the last years, it still is a niche and accounts for about 6% in terms of sustainable finance. So impact investing goes a step further than sustainable finance. It doesn't address just environmental, social, and governance issues, but it wants to, in an intentional way, measure and achieve impact, social, environmental, economic. And so we have launched at last Building Bridges conference in December the SDG Impact Finance Initiative, which has been co-created with many actors in Switzerland, with Swiss Sustainable Finance, with Sustainable Finance Geneva, with academia, with different actors. And the result is an initiative, a public-private partnership, together with UBS Optimus Foundation and Credit Suisse Foundation, SDC from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and SECO to start with, bringing together, when hopefully the funds of SDC will be approved by the end of June, we will have about 33 million Swiss francs and want to raise 100 million by 2030, with 3 distinct windows that we want to promote. One is going to be the innovation window, which wants to promote collaboration on developing new solutions, new financial solutions to address different SDGs. So feasibility studies, proof of impact, and so on. The second window is the product window. So we want to scale financial products where we can crowd in pension funds, institutional investor, big investors. And the third window, equally important, is going to be the ecosystem window, where we look at regulation, standards, impact measurement, tax issues, and there we're going to work with academia and other actors. Currently, the first open call for proposal is out. You will find it either if you Google SDG Impact Finance Initiative or on the Convergence side. Convergence is an actor. They are originally from Canada. They are the experts on blended finance. So blended finance is when you pool public and private funds for specific goals, and they are used to manage this kind of open call for proposals, so that we make sure that we get the process right in having clear and transparent criteria, and then to go through the assessment in a transparent way. So this call is out, and we plan to have a second open call for proposal in autumn on window 2, so on scaling financial products. And we would like to invite everyone either to apply once you go through the eligibility criteria, to spread the word, because we really want to get out as many as good proposals, or if you or someone else who has capital and would like philanthropic capital or other funds would like to join this initiative, to get in touch with us, because our vision is very ambitious. We want to create, with 100 million, we want to raise capital of 1 billion, which basically means a leverage factor of 1 to 10. And we have done this in the past with other projects. It's very ambitious, but not impossible, and we need to stay ambitious to reach the goals we have in front of us. Thank you very much.
Stay here. Excellent. So, we have a couple questions that are coming in. Come to the middle. Come over here. Excellent. Couple questions. Can an early stage startup in a developing country without incorporation in Switzerland access funds from SECO?
Not directly, but indirectly, yes, because in some countries we have Swiss entrepreneurship program going on. That's a startup program I haven't mentioned before, so it's a great opportunity to mention it here. It's a program that we have created to strengthen and further establish the ecosystem for startups in certain countries. In those countries, we have worked with the different supporting organizations, be it accelerators, mentoring networks, business development services, and boot camps, so different actors. And those actors have then also access to investors, and the program more and more is trying to link the two sides, so that the ecosystem and the investment side. And so while we don't invest directly in startups, and there are good reasons for that, because you need to be an investor and you need to have the right processes in place, we can connect. Mm-hmm. So in some of the countries where we have the program, we would be happy to do that.
So that sort of answers another question that came in as well, which is, can early-stage startups take a loan from SECO? So the answer is no to that.
Well, if you are domiciled in Switzerland and
yes.
you plan to invest in one of the developing countries, then have a look at the SECO Startup Fund. And then there is another program called REPIC, which is pre-SECO Startup Fund, so they operate now with grants mainly, and that's for renewable energy and that space.
Are current macroeconomic measurements still fit for purpose? Rethinking GDP has been mooted as a way to incentivize ESG positive growth. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think it's clear that growth alone is not anymore the mantra, although we have to see that everywhere where big achievements were made in terms of poverty reduction, it was achieved through growth. That's a fact, but the growth we had in the past is not anymore fit for purpose. So that's why we work on policies that promote growth, for a lack of better term, that is in line with, if we invest in energy, it has to be renewable or clean, and so on. So in that sense, we have to grow with resources in line that we don't damage the planet any longer.
And I can tell there's at least one blockchain enthusiast here, because pretty consistently there's a question regarding this area. So I'm going to ask this question out of respect. When we talk about innovative financial instruments, what do you think about crypto, NFTs?
Okay, we have a small cooperation on blockchain, because I also believe, like the previous speaker, that blockchain can be a solution for certain problems. It's not, the silver bullet for everything, but in certain areas it can provide quite interesting solutions. And so we're helping to build up the ecosystem for startups using blockchain technology in South Africa. And by that, we're also learning a bit. We haven't done anything with cryptocurrency and so on. I leave that to others for the moment.